What qualities do you see in the next James Bond? He should probably be handsome and charming. Be British is always a plus too. On paper, it seems like Outlander star Sam Heughan would have been a perfect fit for the role. This is at least what his fans have been saying for almost 2 decades now. Ever since Pierce Brosnan stepped down from his iconic Bond role, fans were clamoring to see a young Heughan fill his shoes. Of course, it was Daniel Craig who would receive the role of the new Bond, and the rest is history. He has played the character since then in 5 of the most successful films in the series' decades-long run. Apparently, Heughan was just one key trait away from landing the role of Bond. The Scottish actor has a new memoir called Waypoints, and in the book, he explained his early audition for Casino Royale. What it came down to was that the producers thought Heughan was just too nice for the role. Heughan went over talking about the casting director for the film, Barbara Broccoli, and the film's director, Martin Campbell, in his memoir. He said, "I was invited to head up to the next floor, where producer Barbara Broccoli was waiting for me, like M, sitting in the leather chair across a large table. It was all just so cool, and crowned by the fact that Barbara was charming and delightful. When I left, I half wondered whether I was about to be tested with a car chase home." Although Heughan appears to have seemed confident in his first audition, the role would not go to him in the end. He did not seem bitter at all about the decision, complimenting Craig on his performance as Bond, saying he made Bond his own. He went on to say that he had a major takeaway from the experience despite not landing the role. When reflecting on it, he said, "The feedback I received boiled down to the fact that I wasn't edgy enough by nature. I'm always keen to take on criticism so I can improve as an actor, but the suggestion seemed to be that I lacked this quality in my real character." The first Scotsman to play the role of Bond was the first to ever do so on the big screen, Sean Connery. Heughan, had he been selected, would have been the second. It wasn't his national heritage that prevented him from claiming the role, but instead his lack of edge. With this being considered, Craig was a perfect choice for the role. He delivered a brooding intensity to the role that perfectly fit the tone of the films. In all fairness, it's difficult to picture Heughan matching this energy. Regardless of how things worked out 20 years ago, Heughan has gone on to have an unbelievably successful career. He took on the role of Jamie Fraser in the hit series Outlander, which, just like Bond, was adapted from a series of novels. The show just recently finished its 6th season. Heughan also got the chance to take on the role of another spy in the comedy film The Spy Who Dumped Me. In this film, he starred alongside Mila Kunis and Kate McKinnon. The spoof film was released in 2018. Heughan went on in his memoir talking about what he learned after failing to land the Bond role. He sees that experience as helping him add a layer of grit to his kind of personality when it's required. It appears he thanks his ability for getting the role of Jamie on Outlander. He says, "Following that experience, I learned to appear naturally on that level when required. Even though I was essentially acting outside of the actual audition, it became just one more thing I was prepared to do in order to land a part." It's hard to say who the next Bond will be, with Daniel Craig stepping down from the role. While Heughan may be too old to take on the role, the door may be open for a second chance. Heughan is far from the only actor to miss out on a famous movie role. Here are 11 other actors who missed out on potentially career-defining roles. First up is Emma Stone, who was looking for the lead part in the Tim Burton-directed Alice in Wonderland. The role instead was given to Mia Wasikowska for the 2010 film. Stone described her experience of not getting to act for the famous director. She said, "Not getting a Tim Burton movie is really devastating." Next on our list is the star of Dune and Call Me By Your Name, Timothée Chalamet. In an alternate universe, it looks like Chalamet could have been the one to play Spider-Man instead of Tom Holland. He said at that point in his career, he was auditioning for plenty of high-profile roles and that these things weren't happening. Chalamet is set to star in a new reboot of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as Willy Wonka. Next up is Ben Stiller and his failed audition for My Cousin Vinny. Although the talented actor would go on to land some of the biggest comedy roles of the 2000s in films like Meet the Parents and Zoolander, he missed out on the role of Billy Gambini, eventually played by Ralph Macchio. When asked about the situation, Stiller said, "I tanked my audition for My Cousin Vinny. It still haunts me to this day." Coming up next is Jake Gyllenhaal. The star of Brokeback Mountain and Spider-Man Far From Home could have been cast in the massive fantasy franchise Lord of the Rings. When talked about his audition on Jimmy Fallon, Gyllenhaal said, "I remember going to this room. There was a lot of stage directions and no lines. It was just like finding the ring. And I remember I didn't really do it because I didn't really understand because there were no lines. So I sort of walked up and opened a box up and I was like, is that good?" Literally, Peter Jackson was like facepalm. Needless to say, he did not land the part. The next actor on our list is Taylor Lautner, who was passed up for the Disney Channel original movie Camp Rock. The film's lead role of Shane Gray would eventually be given to Joe Jonas, who starred in the film alongside the other Jonas brothers. Lautner arguably got lucky by missing out on this role, because shortly after, he got the part of Jacob Black in the massive Twilight franchise. Up next is Russell Crowe, who missed out on starring in My Best Friend's Wedding. The director of the film has spoken openly about how poorly Crowe's audition went. He said, "I don't know what went wrong. It was one of the worst table reads I've ever experienced." Russell was seated opposite to Julia Roberts. He gripped the script and he stared at the script, and he didn't look at her once. He read every line in a monotone. At one point, Julia was literally leaning over the table, staring like inches from Russell's face, trying to make eye contact, and he wouldn't look at her. Next up is Matthew McConaughey, who missed out on the iconic role of Jack in 1997's Titanic. Although the actor reports that he nailed the audition, he did not end up getting the part. He has also said that there was a rumor that I got the role and didn't do it. This is false. Coming up next is American Pie star Chris Klein, who somewhat uncharacteristically auditioned for the musical Mamma Mia. There is a video from this audition that sees Klein singing the ABBA tune, "Lay All Your Love on Me." The role of Sky he was auditioning for went to Dominic Cooper instead. Up next is John Krasinski, of The Office fame, who very nearly landed the role of Captain America over Chris Evans. When Marvel eventually decided to go with Evans, Krasinski did not seem shocked in the slightest. When given the news by his agent, Krasinski remembers saying, "Yeah, look at him, he's Captain America." The next actor on our list is Reese Witherspoon, who very nearly became Cher Horowitz in the iconic 90s comedy Clueless. Although the role went to Alicia Silverstone, Witherspoon was heavily considered. Even though the director and writer of the film, Amy Heckerling, said she met with Witherspoon, she also said she knew at the time that Silverstone was meant for the role. Witherspoon would go on to star in the equally iconic 2000s comedy Legally Blonde. Finally, rounding off our list is Tom Holland, who auditioned for John Boyega's part in Star Wars: The Force Awakens. The man who would become Spider-Man recalls his audition where he couldn't hold back his laughter when acting alongside a drone whose only dialogue was beeping and booping. He said, "I just couldn't stop laughing. I found it so funny, and I felt really bad because she was trying really hard to be a convincing android or drone or whatever they're called. Yeah, I obviously didn't get the part. That wasn't my best moment." What do you think of Heughan's chance at the Bond role? Do you think he would have nailed the part, or do you agree he's just too nice? How about the other actors that missed out on roles? Can you see any of them playing the parts they missed out on? Do any other actors who missed out on big roles come to mind? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you next time.